Erin, thank you so much for agreeing to this interview. I'm really excited to just ask you a bunch of questions, to hear your story again, but also it's just part of just as a disclosure to anyone who's listening. Mindset and affiliated investors have led an investment round into Garden Society, the company you're the CEO of. And I'm really excited for other people to hear what has made me so excited and to hear your story. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. So excited to be here and to have you as a partner and on the cap table and what we're building. So this will be fun. Tell me if I talk.
No. This is great. No, and I want the full Erin Gore. So you just have to promise not to hold back for me. Okay.
Isn't that always what you get with me?
I'm pretty sure, but now that we're recording, I just want to make sure. So there's two stories that I want to start off with. And the first is I want you to tell me about your hips and how they got you into cannabis.
Yeah, totally. So I was a college basketball player. I was a walk-on at Wisconsin. Go Badgers. We're kind of having a tough season this football season, but we'll come back. And growing up in Wisconsin, playing sports my whole life, having it be my passion, I went through some early injuries. I'm tall. Any of those who know me know I'm really tall. And women's sports medicine just wasn't the same 25 years ago as it is today. So I had hip injuries in college, in basketball, and, dealt with that over my professional and my adult life. I ended up on a very tight and fast prescription for opiates to manage my chronic pain. I was 24, 25, 26, 27, and they kept increasing my subscription or prescription amount. They also were then prescribing me Ambien to sleep and opioids for pain, and it was just a bad slope. I didn't feel like myself, and I was desperate for any other solution while I was trying to figure out how I could fix my hips. I moved to California for work. I worked at Henkel at the time. I'm sure we'll get into that. And I found medical marijuana. I met my now husband, and I was always a little bit of a closet smoker, but being a D1 athlete, you had to be really careful. But having moved to California, lived in Hermosa Beach, I got my medical card, and I really started to understand this plant. And it was the first time in my entire journey with my hip injuries that I found relief. I found sleep, I found pain management, and I realized how incredible this plant was, especially in the medical market of California back in 2009, 2010. But then I also found all the problems with the medical market of California in 2009, 2010, where the potency and the consistency, the homogeneity of the products, like I could have really incredible products and really not incredible products. So it led me on my own journey of education and understanding the cannabis plant and learning how to make products that helped me, frankly.
And at the same time, once you got out of college, you are a chemical engineer.
Yep.
And then you went to go work for the very large German conglomerate Henkel.
Yep.
Yeah. How long did you work there, and what did you do for Henkel exactly?
Yeah, I had quite the journey there. Some of the most incredible people I've ever worked for, but then also some of the craziest experiences. So I was a chemical engineer. I started in the process engineering department. I worked in a fat plant in Chicago to start. That was exactly what you would expect it to be. Incredibly disgusting, processing animal fat to make cosmetic derivatives. I was doing distillation. I was doing a refinery. I was doing purification. So amazing how relevant in today's world of cannabis, of taking fatty molecule structures and purifying them. I didn't know my life would come so full circle, to be totally honest. But that's how I started. I ended up then moving out to California, and I went into process engineering, where I got my Lean Six Sigma black belt. So I traveled the country to all the large scale CPG manufacturers, where I was analyzing their processes to basically help the sales team value sell commodity glue. So if you think about anything in your grocery store is glued together, paper towels have 4 kinds of glue in them. Toilet paper has 5 kinds of glue in them. But that was really what I was doing. Eventually,
Wait, paper towel and toilet paper has glue in them?
small random facts. If you're ever in a trivia contest, you'll now win.
Oh, I had no idea. Okay, keep going. Sorry to interrupt.
Diapers. Anyway, so I ended up going into the commercial side of the business. I really wanted to have more of that business experience. I realized I was really good at process engineering, but I missed the business side, and that's where I was really interested in. Henkel was tremendous at giving me opportunity. I was also the only woman, so I was continuing to break barriers, break the glass ceiling, create roles. They had to build me a bathroom at one point early in my career. So I ended up going into sales. I then took over global sales for packaging adhesives. And then I ended up taking over the Nike account. So at the time, Henkel didn't have a footwear business. So adhesives to make shoes. So shoes are also just glued together. They didn't have a business there. And Henkel was really interested in building the industrial footwear adhesive business on a global scale. And so I started with Nike and ended up building the entire business for them. So it was a crazy journey. I took it from 0 to 134 million, 32 million in EBITDA, won business of the year, and then realized I loved building businesses and I wanted to do it for myself.
So let's circle. So those are the two stories I want to tell. So you have chemical engineer, Six Sigma black belt, lean manufacturing expert, with someone who was like, oh my gosh, opioids don't work. I don't want pharmaceuticals. Cannabis really helped dramatically improve my life. So tell me how the two kind of came together.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting how people end up having sparks to start companies and ideas. So mine came together through almost like professional success, because the more success I had at Henkel, the more isolated I felt socially. And, my husband and I have a joint brand with Constellation. We have a JV with them around my husband's role in the wine and Tom Gore Vineyards. We have vineyards. He has a big career. I, was doing my big Henkel job at the time. And I just felt like I couldn't, I kind of blame Sheryl Sandberg, but I couldn't just lean in and do it all. Like, you were bad at something. Like, it was impossible to be the perfect woman. You couldn't be a great friend and a great wife and have an incredible career and have children and cook every meal. It was not possible. And so I kept turning back to cannabis, but for different reasons at that time, to manage my stress, help me sleep. Sleep was a really difficult thing for me, especially with global travel all the time. Really tried to drink less alcohol and then continue to manage my ongoing chronic pain. And what I realized is making different forms of cannabinoid products were so incredibly powerful. CBD, THCA, all the things that we love today in today's cannabis products, but back then they didn't exist. I told one of my girlfriends I had a weed lab in my house because I was making all these edibles for myself. This is 2013, 14. And she's like, I want to come over. And I was like, really? Okay. And then all these women started coming over and I started having monthly parties and bigger parties and bigger parties. And pretty soon they were at the golf course and they were even bigger parties. And what I realized was there was this incredible community of women who were like me, who really struggled to find peace, joy, rest, the basic things that make you feel good as a person. And that all of these people were interested in plant medicine and healthier ways to find that. So it was no longer about prescriptions. It was, how can this plant do this for me? And all of these people needed product and education. So I had actually had my 4th miscarriage. I won business of the year one weekend. And I had a big party, the last big party. And I had an epiphany where I needed to build a company that was focused on quality products, education, and community. And that was the start of how I transitioned into business, manufacturing, cannabis, love, and community into what is now today Garden Society.
That's awesome. And so now what Garden Society does is basic manufacturing of edibles and pre-rolls, right?
Well, I wouldn't call it basic, but yes. So
not basic, but basically that's what you do.
Yeah. Yep. So we started as parties. We quickly transitioned out of parties because they couldn't make any money. Then we started in wholesale product. And then we realized we were incredibly good at manufacturing. So we quickly transitioned from manufacturing just for ourselves to manufacturing for other people, because It was a cash game for us. It was around how do we manage our cash better? How do we collect cash faster? And how do we utilize and drive down the operating costs of our facility? And then ultimately we were really good at it. So then it became a whole avenue and channel of our business that now we've really grown and are really proud of today.
So what makes manufacturing so hard?
I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I think I hold myself to a very different standard than many other cannabis manufacturers. So we'll get into that, I'm sure. But manufacturing is really about technical know-how. You have to have a knowledge of the plant. You have to have a knowledge of chemistry, of process engineering, of OSHA, of safety. Like there is a lot of people start manufacturing companies in cannabis in California who are like have never made anything before. And it's just like crazy to me because of the technical knowledge that's required to do it at any kind of a scale. And then the second side of it is you have to be able to manage a team and have a team of people. I couldn't build my company today to the scale we're at and going to if it wasn't for my incredible team. So it's a combination of like technical knowledge, implementation, cannabis knowledge, and like the ability to actually build and lead people.
And I think this leads in one of my favorite stories of just how early we are and in the beginning of this industry is you told me the story about the pre-roll machine, the state-of-the-art pre-roll machine.
Yeah.
Can you tell that story again on just about what makes, when we specifically look at pre-rolls, what makes it difficult from the manufacturing side?
Well, definitely. And I think maybe a good analogy to start is to talk about shoes for a second, because as many of us that are in cannabis, there's not a lot of us with deep product expertise. Like if I showed you two different strains and asked you to analyze the molecule size of two different strains, you'd look at me like I was a crazy lady. But if I talk to you about shoes, you understand what I'm talking about, right? So when you think about shoes, what I used to do for Nike is I led a team of engineers and we would take advanced technology from Boeing and from iPhone and all these cool technologies that Henkel had in other divisions, and we'd figure out how to automate them into the footwear industry to reduce labor and drive sustainability and material flexibility. So we had like three very clear goals. And so taking advanced technology like cyanoacrylates was my big project, which is super glue. So think of super glue. Okay. So I took super glue and made shoes with it. But I had to figure out a series of robots and automation to do that. And shoes are very complex because they have different size widths, different size lengths, different colors, different patterns, different sole designs. Think about how many shoes Nike makes and how hard that would be for a robot to be able to do that with any sort of automation and quality control. Okay. So weed's even harder. This is what I've learned over my time is like, honestly, looking at how you automate cannabis manufacturing, especially pre-rolls, when you look at the infinite amount of variables around moisture content, tackiness or stickiness, that's the good part of the weed. But automation machines want you to have it really dry and not sticky because it's easier to flow through automation. So there's this tension there. And then you look at all the different variables of particle size and formats coming out, and it's incredibly, incredibly challenging. So we worked with an automation company, Accelerant. They're awesome. Shout out to Grant. I think he's currently fundraising. So if anybody's interested, check him out. But we helped them build this world-class, incredible, fully automated pre-roll machine where now we can run 17,000 joints a day with one person. So it's an incredible solution for the industry to take like manufacturing process cannabis knowledge with automation expertise and really create something powerful. They didn't have the cannabis knowledge and they didn't have the process knowledge. So like they needed us to bring that to the table. They were great at building robots, but they had to learn like, this is a non-starter. So like we have to use tacky weed because that's what smokes good. That's what tastes good. That's what the potency is. So we're going to have it be tacky no matter what. So how do you automate around it? So we came up with some really incredible solutions together and have built this world-class machine that they're now successfully scaling into new markets.
That's great. And so when I think about like the stickiness of the cannabis, it's going to gum up a machine, which will make it hard for it to kind of get the pre-rolls. And one of the things that I loved hearing is just you iterating constantly with this machine to get the error rate down so
Yes.
that it was acceptable. Yeah.
So like, okay, the other side of pre-rolls, so this is crazy because you think back to shoes, right? And you think of like, oh my God, shoes seem way more complicated than pre-rolls, but I'm telling you they're not. The other side of pre-rolls is these cones. So I don't know if anybody's ever rolled a joint, but those cones, and if you've ever used a pre-rolled cone where you just fill it, that's a very delicate process. So if you're doing it at any kind of scale, most people use knock boxes or rocket boxes, but then they're manually capping it, you're manually trimming it. It's all this manual work, right? So try to have a robot fill a cone consistently, correctly, with it close to the crutch with the right pressure, not overfilled, not underfilled. Those cones are so delicate, and those cones are made by hand in India. So the variability in the cone in and of itself is crazy. That has been an incredible process, but I think coming together with a really great automation company, we're able to solve through just us drawing hard lines and educating them around like, no, this is actually the right thing to do. And we have to get the reject rate down. And here's how we solve. Process engineering. This is what I said earlier when I think we hold ourselves to a different standard because we have a continuous improvement board in our facility. So like, what are things that we're constantly working on? Urgent, nice to do, must do. And I'm always look at it. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, we have so far to go. We're so far to go. And then I'm like, somebody came through and was like, who else has one of these continuous improvement boards? And I was like, oh yeah, no one. So I was like, oh yeah.
No, it's one of my main investment thesis in cannabis is that what's in short supply is not the limited license, but operational excellence, much less a Six Sigma black belt.
Yeah,
So switching to gummies, what
sure.
makes gummies so hard? And you told me something that was interesting, that recipes are valuable.
Yep.
And that just kind of blew my mind. Like, why would a recipe be valuable? Why can't anyone come up with a recipe?
Yeah.
And I've heard other companies, come up, oh, we're going to make like 1 million gummies and it's pretty easy. It's just a race to the bottom in terms of cost. And can you just explain to me what makes gummies hard and why a recipe would be valuable?
Yeah, totally. So it's interesting for us. So we have our own Garden Society gummies. They're wine flavored. We make our own nano emulsion in-house. So one thing I think that's very unique about Garden Society's gummies is we were the first full spectrum, full lipid, full cannabinoid profile edible product that was fast acting in the California marketplace. We did that for 2 ways. Like one, we'll get back. I'll answer your question in a second first. But just a little cannabis education. So I did a study with a professor out of Lehigh where I looked at bioavailability of cannabis molecules in the human body. And this was in 2016 when I was first starting my company. And the data was so incredibly obvious that lipids and some of these other parts of the cannabis plant drive an incredible differentiation of bioavailability into the body versus distillate. Distillate's a more pure.
Can you explain what you mean by for the people like me in the room? When you say bioavailability, I understand lipids and the fat. What exactly are you? Can we drive down what you mean by that?
Absorb it and digest and process it. So most cannabis, it's either easily digestible and absorbable or it's passed through your body. So there's a hypothesis that the higher fat content and these other molecules aid in the digestion and absorption of THC into the bloodstream. So like cannabis molecules are really big molecules. So the way nanoemulsification works is you actually change the particle size and you change the absorption rate and the absorption ability of the THC molecule to be absorbed faster. So we were the first one to put these together with some, I call it basic chemistry knowledge, but clearly it's like pretty significant chemistry knowledge around polymer chemistry and how to make nanoemulsified solutions. So we did that. And so I think what gets back to your point is that there's a lot more food science and chemistry knowledge into making a gummy. You can anybody can make a gummy on the internet. That's the glory of the internet, right? So like I can buy some molds at Joann Fabrics and get some gelatin at the store and I can make it on my stove and pour some gummies and like put some distillate in it or spray some weed on it, or people make it different ways at home. But it's really about how do you scale it effectively? How do you have enough food science for this? Like in gummies, there's a colloid structure to set, whether it's gelatin or pectin or both. How do you have it set right so it has stability on the shelf? And maintains moisture and has the right stoichiometry of the THC and, all of that. And then how do you scale it cost effectively? And I think one part of it is the recipe. I think one part of it is the process that goes into creating the stability of the recipe. But then I think it's also executing it at scale with the right team, the right systems, the right quality program. And that's what makes the gummy so hard. We have so much gummy demand. I'm turning away gummy clients because I think word's gotten out that we make good products for ourselves, and now we're making incredible products for other leading brands in the industry. I'm really proud to say that when we launch New Jersey next month, we're actually Kiva's manufacturing partner of choice for the New Jersey market. So we'll be making the entire Kiva portfolio in New Jersey, launching Caminos to start. So I think our gummy knowledge is going to be put to the test, but but I feel confident and good about it. I feel really good about it.
And so I think you also said something I want to hone in on that I found on the same way in cultivation is that, like, if you're going to just grow a couple of plants or grow out of your garage, you could grow, it's pretty easy to grow cannabis. But if you want to grow, a cultivation at size and scale and do it consistently, it's almost impossible. And it sounds like it's kind of not almost impossible. It's just very difficult.
Very challenging. Yeah, exactly.
And it sounds like it's somewhat of a similar thing with gummies, and just in terms of scale and making sure you have that consistent, stable product. So
and you have to remember, like you make batches. So we make about 42,000 gummies a day right now. And then when you make a batch of gummies, they're testing at random points. So you really have to make sure you have that consistency and that you have your stoichiometry right and the homogeneity right, because you really have to deliver a quality product for both passing edible testing and then as well as for that customer or brand. And you have to have that food science right. Otherwise the pectin cooks too long, or it sweats in the package, or there's a lot of things that go really wrong with poor chemistry design and poor process knowledge.
Gotcha. And so what's the importance of a GMP kitchen? How hard is it to accomplish?
Yeah.
And where do you think the industry is going in terms of the kind of kitchen, the quality, and the manufacturing? Can you just tell me what Garden Society is doing and what your views are?
Yeah, exactly. So,
and explain what a GMP kitchen is as well for others who don't know.
Yeah, totally. So GMP kitchen is called good manufacturing practices or good manufacturing processes. What it is it's like world-class manufacturing standards. There's actually certifications, audit processes. So if you're Kraft Foods, if you're Amy's Market, if you're anyone in today's world selling food products at scale, you're operating in a GMP certified kitchen with GMP policies and procedures. And you're audited to that. You're held to that quality standard. Also pharmaceuticals. So they have sometimes even higher requirements than food products, but again, all in that same vein of like highly regulated, highly controlled, and some really incredible systems in place. So for Garden Society, when we started, I was so fortunate. I really believe that, not to get religious for a second, but God has a plan for us and a path. So I was so fortunate to have the experience of Henkel. I didn't know then I was going to build a weed manufacturing multi-state company, right? So like to have this like incredible manufacturing background and experience to set me up for this. But I saw the best in the world. I saw incredible facilities where phones are made, where shoes are made, where food's made, where I saw the best and the brightest of the manufacturing facilities that exist today for consumer products. And so I had this eye of like what we needed to be. But at the end of the day, for Garden Society, we were chronically underfunded. We're chronically, figuring out the regulations and the rules as we're literally building the product. So in California, we started very small scale, 1 foot in front of another, passed this code, got this license, built this. But when we launched into Ohio, it was all GMPs. So in building the Ohio facility, we took over a distressed asset. We turned it around. We built out a GMP facility. We implemented GMP policies and procedures, and we turned it on. And now we're manufacturing in Ohio, really great products. We had a huge week of sales last week, booming in Ohio, which was great. And what I realized is like, this is what we were aspiring to be in California. And it was a really incredible forcing mechanism to get there. So now we brought that back to California, and that's also how we're building in New Jersey. There's a lot of chatter about, oh, when GMP happens or Schedule 3 happens, the cannabis industry is going to go out. And in my opinion, this is how you should run manufacturing. You should have an allergen program, and it has that program and vendor qualification process. This is just the right way to do business. So it's great for us to be positioned ready for that and knowing how to do it with the policies and the procedures and the processes and the experience in place to execute on it.
So basically you're saying that GMP is not the standard in cannabis.
No.
Right now.
I love
Okay.
like the bro chat groups, like, I don't want to get anyone in trouble here, but there's a lot of chatter around like, oh, when GMP happens, the industry is wiped out. And I'm like, sayonara, dudes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just go a little further on that Schedule 3. So when you think, I'm a big believer that, and a lot of people are, that we're going to get a Schedule 3 reclassification of cannabis. When that happens, you think that actually pushes the industry to where you're at in terms of, and so anyone who has a kitchen or is manufacturing, they're going to have, can you explain why you think they're going to, and what's involved? Like, okay, I have a kitchen, I'm making gummies. How hard is it to get to GMP?
Yeah, exactly. So it's really interesting to me. I'm by no means an expert. I have some great consultants that help me. I'm probably an expert in the cannabis realm, but if you put me into a food manufacturing room, I wouldn't claim to be a GMP expert by any means. So I think the skill level is very distinct and different. For us, what it means is having the training program in place and these, like I said before, how to source the right ingredients to prevent a quality problem down the road, how to make sure that you're sanitizing properly. So one thing I see with most cannabis companies is they don't have proper sanitization processes. They don't clean enough. They're not wearing PPE. You walk into a cannabis manufacturing facility and they're not wearing hairnets or gloves or lab coats or all these things that are like what I view as basic requirements for manufacturing, but what many view as unnecessary for vape pens or pre-rolls, let alone like edibles. So I think it's going to be adjustment to Schedule 3 for everyone. Health and Human Services is going to roll it out. It's the standard operating procedure for food manufacturing. I think everybody's going to have to level up, but it's going to take some time to get there because from an implementation point of view, because they just have to build all these programs at the federal level once it goes Schedule 3. So that's going to be really hard. But the basics, I think people should start doing now, honestly. I don't know why they don't. It's crazy to me.
Gotcha. So you mentioned before that you make you are a contract manufacturer for some brands. You mentioned New Jersey, you're going to make for Kiva. Yeah. Can you talk about some of the other either companies or brands that you manufacture for besides yourself under the Garden Society brand?
Yeah, we're really proud to be a great partner to Jetty. So we're stoked to launch Jetty in New Jersey. We're stoked to make Jetty products in collaboration with them in California. We work a lot with PAX, so they've been an incredible partner to ours. We're building with Craft, so that's really exciting. And we've worked really hard over the last year as part of our strategic plan. I think another thing that sets Garden Society apart that's maybe like not so sexy to the public, but maybe to you as an investor, to me as a founder, is we have an incredibly robust strategic planning process every year. We do a strategic plan on a page, we execute against it, we check in against it quarterly. And as part of that process last year, we identified we wanted more strategic brand partners for manufacturing. And we wanted to really start to leverage into a multi-state strategy for contract manufacturing versus before it was always an afterthought for us. It was like, oh, we have some free time, or, oh, let's make some money. We need to pay bills coming up. So it was more reactionary, and now it's become much more strategic. So we've really positioned hard over the last 18 months to partner with what we view as some of the best in the country brands and help bring them to scale in the markets we operate.
And you also work with the large multi-state operator cannabis companies. What do you do for the MSOs, and what can you offer them that they can't do? Pretend I'm Erin Edelheit MSO. Like what do you do for other MSOs, and what could you do for me?
This was a really interesting realization I had at MJ BizCon 2 years ago. I sat there and there was two MSO CEOs at a table drinking. And I sat there and I was like, I'm just going to listen. I'm just going to listen. They didn't know who I was, right? They're talking loud. They're future exit. And they were trading. They were horse trading. They were negotiating these deals. I'll do this for you. You do this for me. I'll do this for you. You do. And I was like, so this is how it's done. I got to start adding value and trading. Okay. So that's what inspired me to because I was trying to figure out, how do I break into the MSOs? And what I've realized as part of the strategic plan is, so we work with best in class brands, but then we also have this national footprint. So we have factories in California, Ohio, New Jersey. We need retail. Everybody in Ohio is an MSO dominant market. There are local independents, but the volume of the transactions in MSO is MSOs. And then in New Jersey, clearly it's an incredible MSO market. So we worked hard to say who's operating where and how do we solve their problems in California and add value. So then we build a relationship with them in these other markets. So we manufacture for TerraSend. We used to manufacture for Curaleaf before they pulled out of California. We work with TPCO, Gold Flora, they just merged. We work with The Botanist now. We work with Air, Verano. So we're really, really excited to both from a sourcing point of view, because we're not cultivators. We never claim to be. A lot of these MSOs are looking for revenue with sourcing, but then also for retail and also for manufacturing. So it's like understanding where are their strengths, what do they need, how can we help them enter or participate in California effectively, and then how can we scale that into the markets where we need their support in these other states. So it's been definitely a journey. My MJ BizCon is a little bit busy because I have a lot of stuff to talk about with a lot of these guys.
Yeah, and I've got to imagine, one of my big kind of enlightening moments, and kind of the thing that I now really worry about the larger MSOs is they're literally trying to execute 6 very different businesses
Totally.
in 5 to 15 different states with wildly different regulatory rules. And it seems to just make sense that hey, I could just work with you, make my edibles or make me some pre-rolls. And then you in response, we're happy to help you. Can you also carry some Garden Society? And then it just takes one little operational, I say one little, but just one main operational thing that the MSOs don't have to do. I would imagine that that's a big relief.
It's a big relief. And that's where we found success. Honestly, they're like, it's going to cost me $25 million to build a kitchen. And I'm like, well, I can do it for 1.2. And people say to me, how can you do it for so little and it costs them so much? And my response is, it's what I do. It's my expertise versus having to hire consultants and all these attorneys and all these third parties. And I mean, that all adds up, right?
It's what you did at Henkel.
Right, exactly. And what I really understand, I think that's distinct about my business versus others who are there are some publicly traded national manufacturing companies. So people ask me, how are you distinct? And I think one thing that sets me apart is I'm incredibly responsible with capital because I've been incredibly underfunded. And as a woman raising
until now.
But as a woman raising capital, plant touching, I am not at all I'm abrasive about my love of cannabis to a point, right? And so having to be so incredibly responsible with capital and having to execute it correctly and deploy it correctly, and then basically building a business that we can templatize into all these markets has been how we're able to do it. And then that's exactly what is happening. The MSOs say, hey, you can build it cheaper, better, faster. You can hit deadlines better than my own team can hit deadlines because that's what you do. Here's my business. Buy raw material from me. I'll place you in all my stores in the country. And now the business really starts to unlock and move.
That's great. And so you mentioned you're going into New Jersey. Could you give me the timeline of when you expect to launch and what you're expecting from New Jersey?
Yeah. So would you like to come out and interview with us next week? Because we're hiring people. I don't know how I'm going to be in 2 places at the same time. I haven't figured this out yet.
I believe in you. I believe in you.
Vegas. I'm going to be sitting in Vegas on Zoom interviews in New Jersey. Anyway, So we're really pumped. We are like going as fast as we can in New Jersey. We'll be on the December 7th agenda, final stages of inspections. We got all of our local city licensure process finished. Construction's done next week, and we are almost off to the races. So we're working hard to launch Kiva in January, and Garden Society shortly behind it. So that's like, tomorrow, it feels like. I feel the pressure. I have like a weighted blanket on me at all times, this invisible weighted blanket of I think it's going to be a really good New Year's for me once everything's like done. But the next 6 weeks are going to
be. Then you'll have the next thing.
Yeah, totally.
Then you have the next thing. That's how it works.
I always thought, somebody asked me what's the hardest part about being a founder. And, this is one of my sweet friends who has a jam company. And, I love women-owned businesses. I try to support them with everything I can. And I do a lot of mentoring in the space, both in Sonoma County for women entrepreneurs and then in cannabis for women and women of color. And I was talking to this woman, she's like, what's the hardest thing about being a founder, like doing what you're doing? Because I'm a founder, but I'm making jam and selling it at this, stand. And I'm like, I think it's like, I'm realizing the naivety of like, it's going to get easier. It never gets easier.
No.
The next quarter, anyway.
You're scaling. That's never easy.
Yeah. And now what's really like, I focused really hard this last year on building our team. I know that's like so cliche and a lot of people take that lightly, but what's been incredible in the evolution of Garden Society is I've built a leadership team that is all founders. So everybody on my team had run their own business at one point, cannabis business at one point in the past, but then also has big CPG experience. Like Maggie's a Northwestern / Stanford MBA. She was, high up in the marketing program at Pepsi. So an incredible resume for big CPG drink, founder of Besito, launched chief brand officer at Ascend, and now she's my VP of marketing. So she's launched brands in New Jersey. She has CPG background. She understands being a founder. And then what that enables us to unlock at scale as a leadership team has just been transformative for us. So that's been pretty exciting to see and to realize in its fruition over strategic planning last week.
That's great. So where else do you want to, obviously you got New Jersey that you want to expand in. Obviously you're growing Ohio. It's very exciting with adult use just being approved. Is there an opportunity to continue to grow in California or to consolidate other California brands?
Yep. So we're working on our first one, or we just executed our first one with chemistry. So that's going to be coming soon. You'll see it hitting the press release here in a couple of weeks. And I think there's an incredible opportunity to look at how to consolidate some distressed assets. I also think that California needs an element of consolidation and cleanup, if you will. So I don't think it's easy. So I think like really understanding how do you get scale? It's something we're really talking about is how do we scale California correctly? It's not scale at all costs. We don't want to lose money scaling. So like, how do we do this right in California to compete and win where we define winning? And so that's something we're really top of mind and working on right now. I think there is a lot of opportunity in California. I also think California is incredibly hard and complex and has really bad habits as an industry. So it's refreshing to be in these new markets where people are there's just so much positivity and joy and appreciation for quality product versus California. It's much more of a dogfight, as we all know. But we're excited to really focus on that this next year. We're also excited to look at how we participate more in the South and the Midwest. So there's some really great adult use markets like Missouri. We're interested in some of these emerging markets in the Midwest and the South. And then, I think the elephant or the goat in the room is the D9 market. I know you're a big fan of it right now. But something we're also trying to understand and unpack with the Farm Bill being pushed is like, what's the importance of the D9 market as a brand and as a plant touching regulated license holder, but brand? And how do we participate in that market? Smart, measured, but strategic. When and how does that show up? So that's what we've got in the hopper for this next year.
That's all you have. That's all you have, right? Good. It's good. It's just a few things. I'm really excited to put this interview out because I told you the title that I'm going to use,
Yeah, I love
just about how the industry's filled with like CannaBros or
yeah,
just men, like, like me. I don't know. But I wanted to get,
that, but that's okay.
yeah. But I wanted to get your sense of how does it feel? You alluded to it already about being one of the few women leaders in the industry and the
Yeah.
responsibility you feel, and just how do how does it feel to be one of the few women leaders, and where you see the industry's going in terms of the men women leadership?
Yeah, well, I'm proud that we're still here, first off. Some people say, "Oh, you made it." And you're like, "Oh, is that a compliment or a bad thing?" No. So I'm like really proud to still be here. I'm really, really proud to be building something incredibly meaningful. As you know, we did a capital financing at the end of last year with Speedwell, and now we did your financing with Mindset. And so to be being invested in this market, in this landscape, means we're doing something unique and right. And so the community is seeing that, the investment community, the cannabis community at large, like our business is just incredibly scaling right now. So people recognize and see what we're building and the meaning behind it. So irrespective of gender, like take that away for a second, like building this right, cool, interesting, unique, really set up well for an exit company is what people see. And then the gender piece online, putting that over it, to me, it's a responsibility on my part for representing women. I always say the best way to support women is to transact with them, buy from them, support them, sell to them, like raise women up through doing business. I always say we're not a charity and it's not performative. Like actually work with me is the best way to support me. And then I always say men are our best allies. So, I got the opportunities at Henkel because I had incredible male bosses who believed in me and gave me a chance. And so, for Garden Society, we have incredible partners. We have incredible male allies like yourself and many others. John O'Rourke out there. There's too many to name, but anyway, they really helped us build this company to where we're at. So I look forward to a world where there's more equitable access to capital. Probably there's more capital, period. I think
We just need cannabis. I'm doing my best. We just need more capital.
Capital, period, and then equitable access to capital. And then I really am excited for some of this federal change because I think it's going to really help to level the playing field a little bit more and just bring some freshness to the industry. And then, I always tell people the best way to support women and people of color entrepreneurs is to buy the products at the end of the day. So the more people are out there in intentional consumerism and like really supporting with their pocketbook, that's the best way to impact it, truly.
Especially when it's as good as your products.
Right. Exactly. That's why when people when there's some buyers out there who are like, "Oh, I don't know." And you're like, "Really?" Anyway. So it's good. I am excited. I've been off the conference circuit. I think you know that. I think you could be a professional conference attendee. Like, I think I'm going to put that on my LinkedIn at some point, like my professional attending conference. So many conferences. I think everybody can attest to that. I don't know why everybody feels the need to do it twice a year. But I haven't attended any this year. I'm going to MJ Biz. I'm pumped for it. We have a lot of partners there and a lot of really incredibly strategic conversations lined up. So it should be a really great week.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Erin. I'm really excited to be an investor, to support your company. I think you have a very bright future, and I really appreciate you doing this interview with me.
Thank you so much for letting me tell our story, and shout out to everyone on the Garden Society team. And we're pumped and proud to be part of your portfolio now. So it's great things ahead in our future.
Thanks, Erin.